Welcome to Vegan Business Talk with Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. Hello and welcome to episode 81 of Vegan Business Talk. I'm Katrina Fox, journalist, author, media and PR coach, copywriter, editor and proofreader, and founder of Vegan Business Media, a content, events and training platform providing success tips for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. In this episode, I interview Karine Brighten, event planner and founder of Veg Speed Date in Ontario, Canada. After working with Canada's largest event planning company, JPDL, Karine started her own company, Karine Brighten Events, in 2009, based out of San Francisco, California. Karine has more than a decade of experience in producing and planning events, including the renowned San Francisco Vegan Iron Chef, Berkeley Vegan Earth Day, weddings, and more. Her latest project is Veg Speed Date, a speed dating service exclusively for vegan and vegetarian singles. She started planning speed dating events in San Francisco 5 years ago before launching Veg Speed Date in January 2017. Veg Speed Date events have been running successfully in cities across North America since February 2017, providing an intimate atmosphere for 30 people to connect and get to know each other in the hope of finding that someone special. In this interview, Karine discusses some of the challenges involved in running an event and how to handle them, the key things to consider before you decide to run an event, when to start promoting your event, the 2 key marketing strategies that have been most successful in getting ticket sales to Veg Speed Date, what to do on the day of the event to ensure it runs as smoothly as possible, 3 things it's important to do after you've held an event, how she manages to run successful events in different cities without necessarily being there herself, how to get people to book tickets to your events well in advance, and much more. Here's the interview with Karine Brighten of Veg Speed Date. Hello, Karine. Lovely to have you join me today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So I'm excited to hear about your new business or fairly newish business that you've been doing, Veg Speed Date. But also, because you're a very experienced event manager. So really looking forward to, hearing your thoughts on how we can run successful events. But first, to kick off, I always like to ask everyone why they do what they do. So I know you've been in event management for a long time, and now you're running the Veg Speed Date events. Tell us about your why you do what you do.
Well, I've always had a passion for event planning. And when I started my own business, I really wanted to combine event planning with my passion for veganism as well. And that's kind of how I originally came up with the idea, is doing vegan events in the San Francisco Bay Area. So it kind of started with that, and I really, really enjoy being able to provide a service for the vegan community that does not exist. I've really, truly enjoyed putting on the big events that I have. I've put on Berkeley Vegan Earth Day event. I created and founded that event for 5 years, and then the Vegan Iron Chef event for 3 years, and now Veg Speed Date. So whether it's a big or small event, I really enjoy being able to create those unique experiences for the customers that might not otherwise be available to them.
Fantastic. I love that. And I love that you're doing, live events, because everybody's sort of like, oh, everything's online now and we can hang out online and do these virtual things. And that's all nice and that can be great. But I think there's nothing quite like getting together in real life and actually, making those offline connections. So I love that you do that. That's great. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges in running events.
So every event is different. So they all have their own challenges, but some of the more general things that you can consider is that you really need to be able to expect the unexpected and be prepared to handle it. So with events, there's a lot of last minute changes that can happen. So cancellations, people not showing up, important deliveries not arriving on time, things like that. So you really need to be able to think on your feet.
Yeah.
Also budget. Budget is often a big thing for people. So you have to be able to work with the budget that you have, and that really determines what you can and cannot do. And you really want to be realistic about your skills, what you can handle doing, and when you should be outsourcing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So on that subject, what kind of skills are required to plan an event successfully, whether it's a smaller event or larger event, and whether there are any differences between the two as well?
So, and that's what I've often told my clients, is that whether it's small or big, it's the same thing, because to some level, of course, a bigger event is going to be more work, but the essential components are the same. So in order to be able to run a really successful event, you have to be extremely organized. You have to be able to balance multiple projects at once. You have to have great management skills, communication, marketing, thorough follow-up with people skills, professionalism. So a lot goes into planning successful events.
Right, got it. So can you take us through some of the things that vegan business owners interested in holding their own events, need to consider? So before, during and after the event. So I know you talked about, and we'll put a link to this in the show notes page, you actually wrote a fabulous blog post for veganbusinessmedia.com when it launched, and you covered some of these things. So I wonder if you could just kind of take us through some of those key things that we need to do before, during and after an event.
Sure. So before an event, you really want to establish what your objectives are. So you want to ask yourself, what are you trying to get out of this event? Are you trying to do this to build more customers, get more exposure, to showcase a product or a service? If your goal, if your objective is more to create an educational experience, or you're just wanting to put on for the fun of it, all these answers will really set the tone for how you are planning the event. Another thing to consider beforehand, which is very, very important, is your budget. So are you hoping to generate a profit from the event, or break even, or observe the cost as a business expense? Will you charge an entry fee, ask for donations, make it a free event? So all these questions will help you plan out the budget. Other thing to consider is when to host your event. So you want to think carefully about the date. So what season you're doing it in, whether it's an indoor or outdoor event. You also want to consider if there are other big events happening in your city. So if there's a big veg festival happening, you probably would not want to plan your event on that day because your main target would probably be at the festival. So really, really important to do your research and figure out the best timing of the event, which is difficult. It's definitely something that I'm even still trying to figure out, is which day of the week works better, what time, weeknight versus weekend. So lots of different factors to consider. Something else also that you want to think about is where to host your event. So the type of venue. And the type of venue will pretty much be determined by your budget, because some venues can be extremely expensive. And again, if you need something that's indoor, outdoor, the location is really important, especially if you're trying to get a lot of foot traffic. You probably want to be somewhere where people are seeing you. So those are definitely, things that you want to consider. And then another important thing to do before the event is set a timeline. So a detailed timeline for the event itself of what's going to happen and when, so that you have a plan and that you're able to follow it on the day of the event.
Got it.
Now, during...
What do you mean by that? So when you said that, so like if you were planning, say, a month in advance or 2 months in advance, you mean you would have like dates to say, right, by this date, I've got to complete this task. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yes. So I always have a detailed plan of what needs to do and when. in terms by month by month, and also week by week, but then also on the day of. So on the day of, you want to have a plan that you share with other people that are running the event with you, if you have any volunteers or staff or vendors, so they know what time the door is open, what time the setup is, what time there's a break, what time the speaker is going on. So it's a detailed plan for the day itself, so that you have this guideline that you follow throughout the day.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. Okay.
Yes. And then during the event, now, of course, this is going to be different based on what kind of event that you're doing, but some general things that you would want to consider is you want to arrive early to make sure that the room is properly set up, and you want to give yourself enough time so that you're not feeling rushed, because being late for something, especially for an event, is never good.
Yeah.
When you get to the event, you want to check with your venue contact and go over any important details, any last minute changes, and just kind of run through that timeline that you've put together. Make sure that they're aware of what's happening and the important things. If you have any volunteers or staff, you want to make sure that they are all there, all on time, and that they know what they're supposed to be doing and when, and you want to check with them throughout the day. And most importantly, you always want to conduct yourself in a professional manner, no matter what happens or whatever you are faced with. With events, there's all different kinds of things that can happen. Unhappy customers, some important key players not showing up and impacting the event. So always having a smile on your face and remaining in control and just being able to deal with it, which is extremely difficult.
Right. I know. I'm just laughing because the last time I held a business, one of these business meetups for vegan business owners, and we couldn't get the PowerPoint to work. And inwardly, I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" But I was kind of like, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out." And I was just kind of laughing when you say that, because, like you say, outwardly you're smiling, and inwardly you're like screaming.
Oh, I know. During one of the Vegan Iron Chef events, the power went out right before the competition started, and we were live streaming.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
wow.
So that was extremely stressful.
I can imagine. Wow. But you just have to kind of, I guess you just have to be upfront with people and honest. Because I was going to ask, what happened, like, for example, say you've got an event, it's a relatively smallish event, and you've got like one key speaker, and the speaker like literally cancels at the last minute, so they have an emergency and they cancel like an hour before. I'm just kind of curious, like, how do you sort of get around that, especially if you couldn't get somebody else to fill in? Like, what would you do in that circumstance?
I mean, that does happen. That happened to me 1 year at the Berkeley Vegan Earth Day event. One of the top speakers, his car broke down and he lived pretty far away. And unfortunately, I just had to apologize and explain to people. And fortunately, I had somebody else at the last minute that could step in. But people are usually understanding that things do happen that are out of your control, and you just have to make the best out of the situation.
Yeah, cool. Okay, great. Excellent. Oh, this is good stuff. Fantastic.
Yes.
So it's really being prepared is what I'm hearing from you.
Definitely. You cannot be too prepared for anything when it comes to events. You want to be over-prepared, have a plan B, and really try to be on top of things as much as you can. And then in regards to after the event, and this is something that I always do after I finish an event, is I get feedback from the participants, from the speakers, from the volunteers, to try to gather as much information as possible to determine what worked and what didn't. And then you want to decide after if you want to do the event again, if it was successful based on your objectives, if they were met or not. You want to thank everyone who was involved, especially if you have sponsors, sponsors or partners or volunteers, anyone that has really been involved with the event and has been very helpful. You want to take the time to thank them. And then you also want, right after the event, to take down notes, your own personal notes of how you thought it went and how you can improve in the future.
Got it. Now, when you say get feedback, Karine, do you mean in terms of like, would you give them like a printed form at the end of it to take, well, like to fill out then and there, or would you do more of a follow-up by email? Would you use SurveyMonkey or just an email asking them? How do you recommend people get feedback for an event?
I personally try to be as paperless as possible, so I do not do paper surveys. So SurveyMonkey is fantastic. Google Forms is also a great one. And that's, I've always done, one of the two, and I do that right now as well for my speed dating events. When someone submits their match forms, there's a box that says, do you have feedback about the event? And that feedback is just so invaluable to be able to just keep, improving more and more on these events and listen to people. And they really, really care when you take the time to do that. I've really found that sometimes we've had a couple people that have been dissatisfied with certain elements of the event, and we took the time to reply and explain, and they were just so surprised that we were actually replying to them and that we were nice people, and they were just so grateful, and we turned a bad situation into a great one.
I love that. I mean, on the one hand, it's a little bit sad that it's so surprising that people get back and are nice, but on the other hand, that's great that you can, turn something like that around. That's really great advice. Fantastic. So one thing I've found with even organising just small scale events, like I mentioned, like the meetups, is that, some people book ahead of time and that's great, but many people leave it till the last minute. And look, I'm guilty of that myself for certain events as well. And as an event organiser, it can be quite terrifying because, especially, if you've booked an event, you've often got to either at least put a deposit down or even pay for the venue in advance, and you want to make sure you get enough people to cover it. So I'm just wondering, what tips have you got in regards to encouraging people to book as earlier rather than last minute?
So you definitely want to start promoting the event as early as possible. So starting a week or 2 or 3 is definitely not sufficient, especially depending on the size of your event. You want to start as early as you can. For our speed dating events, we start promoting a month in advance. And of course, it happens with every event. The majority of ticket sales usually happen the week of the event, which does make it stressful. However, there are ways, and that have been very effective for us, is to have a tiered ticketing price system. So you'll have an early bird pricing and then regular and then day or week of pricing. So it's kind of an incentive for people to reserve early. And if you have limited spots like we do, our events are only between 20 and 30 people, because we advertise that. So we tell people, hey, there's only 20 spots available. So again, you're trying to create a sense of urgency so that people realize if they wait too long, the event might sell out. And then the other thing that you can try is to offer incentives. So you could say the first 20 people to buy a ticket will get a free gift bag. So that's also things that I have done in the past that have been successful.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I was going to ask you about, because I know with the early bird, like some people say, oh yeah, do an early bird, and then you've got a cut-off date, which is I think what you've mentioned with the tiered thing. And then there's somebody else I know who runs events, and they'll do so the first 20 people to book get the early bird rate. But I like the fact that you've said the first 20 actually get something extra. That does create that sense of, fear of missing out, oh yeah, I want that as well. So that's really good
Exactly.
advice. Yeah, thank you for that. No, that's great. So what about marketing and promotion events? Like you've mentioned, you need to be doing it, at least a month or more in advance to actually get it out there. And it can be difficult. There's so much going on out there that, whether it's veg-related events or events that are related to somebody's industry or that they're working in. So I'm curious, what tips can you offer in terms of marketing and promoting your event?
So definitely, like I mentioned before, starting early is really the best thing that you can do to give yourself enough time, because it does take time for people to start finding out about it and then having those people tell their friends. And it's to get the ball rolling. Again, it takes a lot of work. I always recommend having a plan for what you're going to do and when, and to track things. So if your strategy is going to be to let's say post on Facebook groups, you would want to keep track of which groups you've posted to and when, so that you're not going and doubling up the work. This is especially important if you have multiple people working on the promotion. Same thing with sending an email to a business. You wouldn't want to send an email to the same business twice, especially from two different people. It just does not look very professional. So tracking everything, it does take more time, but it's really important to do that. And the most important, if you don't have the time to dedicate to promotion, because promotion can be a full-time job, especially if if it's a new event, if you don't have a lot of contacts, the best thing I can recommend doing is hiring someone, right, which is what I have finally done. When I was in California planning all my own events, it was all me. And it was very, very difficult. And now with Veg Speed Date, it's just impossible for me to do it all. So I do have someone that helps me with the promotion.
Got it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm just thinking as you're saying that, what with all the kind of organizing all the event itself and then to do the marketing and the promotion on top of that, it can be very challenging. So no, that's good. So do you, in terms of the types of promotion, like are you finding social media is still like the best way, like creating a Facebook event, for example, is a good way to, get people to know about what you're doing?
Yes, definitely. Our Google Analytics show that we get the most traffic from Facebook out of anything else.
Oh, cool. What, more like paid ads or organic or?
It's mostly organic. We actually tried doing the paid ads. We spent quite a bit of money, and unfortunately they were not successful. They brought more traffic to our website, but it did not convert into ticket sales.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yes. So and also it's the number one place where we're driving traffic and ticket sales. However, it's not directly from our Facebook page because our page is still pretty small. So what we do, is we post on Facebook groups and we reach out to people that way, which has been very successful for us.
Yeah. No, that makes sense because you're kind of getting right in front of people who are open to hearing about what you've got. You're kind of going straight in front of your ideal market, I guess. So that's
exactly.
Great.
And then the other thing that has worked very well for us is our email list. So we're constantly working on building our email list. So we're trying to incentivize people to sign up for our email list. And right now, what we started implementing a couple of weeks ago is when you sign up for the newsletter, you get $5 off your first event. And that has worked really well. Great. So our email list is growing. And then what we do after is we send out emails to people in each city to promote the events directly. And that, I would say, is the number one way in which we sell the tickets is through email.
Oh, yeah. No, this is great. Fantastic. What about Facebook Live? I know you touched on live streaming of one of your events. So what are your thoughts on the whole kind of Facebook Live video and live streaming of events? Because I guess I can see why people do it, but I'm kind of curious, like, don't people, like if people have paid and they've come along, but then if it's being live streamed, especially if it's live streamed for free, wouldn't the people who come along think, oh, well, I've paid, like, why should I bother coming to the next one if they're going to live stream it? So what are your kind of thoughts on that process?
I mean, I don't personally do Facebook Live videos because it just doesn't, I mean, some people use the Facebook Live videos to promote an event, right? And those types of videos I think are fantastic because I personally love watching videos. So I find that fun. For the live streaming, I did that 2 years for the Vegan Iron Chef event. It was live streamed, but the people who were at home that wanted to watch it live had to pay.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would make sense. So for something like that, it's better to, I mean, obviously, I guess it would be a cheaper option for them because they're not.
Or if they're not in the, right, or if they're not even in the same city or country, right?
Yeah. Okay. And do you find that like in terms of offsetting the expense. So what do you think live streaming can be worth it? Because obviously you've got to pay for that all to be set up. And so you've got to actually cover those costs and make sure you've got enough people paying to live stream it. I guess it's a case of test and measure.
Right. I mean, if ideally you would get it sponsored by companies so that they would cover the cost, because yes, it does add quite a bit of money, because you have to hire the team to administer it. And there's a lot of back end stuff. So for me personally, it wasn't really worth it for my events, but I could see it working well for other events.
Yeah, and that's great advice actually about getting things sponsored. That's probably something worth touching on as well, getting people involved in the event on a sponsor or a partner basis that you mentioned, which can help to offset some of those costs, as well as being a win, obviously, for the sponsor.
Definitely, and that's something that I have a lot of experience with, is getting some great sponsors on board to really help out financially and also in kind.
Yeah, got it. So let's talk a little bit about Veg Speed Date. So I believe you tested it out initially in a more kind of informal way in a couple of cities, and then you've launched it on the current scale that you're doing it right now, which is amazing. So what kind of learnings did you get from doing that, which you're, I guess, able to apply to the new venture?
Right. So actually how it started is when I was in San Francisco, I had friends telling me that they could not find any vegan men in the Bay Area. And I thought, well, that's crazy. I mean, there's so many vegans in California. They're there. We're going to find them. And so that's how I came up with the idea of doing a speed dating event for vegetarians and vegans. And I've actually been doing those events there for 5 years. So they were going on, pretty much every 3 months for a good 5 years. And they were just small events that I did on the side just for the fun of it, as like a nice little break from all the big events that I was doing. I mean, I loved putting on these events because they were easy for me. They were fun. I got to meet great people. So it really took off there. And then I moved back to Canada a year ago, and I decided I'm going to try hosting the events here. It's a much smaller town, much smaller. But I thought, I'm just going to try it out and see how it goes. And they were very successful. And then I had to come up with my next big idea. I knew that I didn't want to keep putting on the big events because I was just kind of done with that. It was a lot of work, and I couldn't really do that kind of thing here. So that's how I came up with Veg Speed Date. I just had the idea one day. I said, I'm going to take Veg Speed Dating across North America. And that's how it started. So the idea was that we were going to have a bunch of events right the week before Valentine's Day. So that was like my vision. And I was successfully able to run 10 events over the course of 5 days, all before Valentine's Day.
Wow.
Yes.
It's making me feel exhausted just hearing you say that.
It was completely insane. I never want to do it like that again, to be honest, because it was all new. This whole concept of running all these events in places venues I had not seen, working with people I did not know. It was a huge amount of work. So some of them, we started off with 15 events, and then we had to cancel 5 of them because we just weren't able to sell enough tickets. And then, of course, we tried the following month. We tried different cities. We were kind of going on a rotation. So we're still experimenting right now, but there are definitely some cities that are taking off like really, really well. But again, we're still, pretty early on and still trying to figure out, where we should go next and which avenues we should pursue.
Right. Now you've touched on that because you said you're, as you say, at the moment you're based in Canada, but you're running these events in different cities across the US. Now I know that, running an event in your local area can be challenging enough, let alone across other cities. So where you're having, I guess, to travel as well yourself. So how are you making that work?
It is extremely challenging. Basically, I just do a lot of research online. I ask people where they think would be a good venue to host an event. And then I reach out to tons and tons of venues and ask them if they're interested in hosting an event. And actually now I'm getting people reaching out to me asking if they can host an event there, which is fantastic.
Oh,
so
right.
it's starting to happen organically, which is a great feeling. So I don't go to all of these events because I just would not have the time to do so. So I hire people in each city to run the event for me. So I provide, I provide all the training before the event. We have a whole guide. It's very detailed. We do a group video training when we have multiple new hosts. We touch base a lot before the event. So I do all the work before and after the event, and then they show up and run the event for me.
Okay, I see. So that leads very nicely into my next question, was going to be about which staff, if any, do you have to help you? So when you say you hire them, do you hire them more on a contract, a freelance kind of contract basis rather than them being your employee? Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yes. So they are contractors. We pay them a flat rate, and we provide the training, and it's been working out really well. I've been very fortunate to have found amazing, dedicated people that do this because they love it and they really enjoy it. And it's been fantastic. I had no idea what to expect. Of course, I did have a couple of people that didn't work out all that great, but that's to be expected. But overall, and because these people running the events, they're the face of Veg Speed Date. They are representing us, and they really make or break the event. So it is crucial that we are really careful with the process of selecting the right people for this kind of work.
Absolutely, yeah, because they're literally representing your brand. So that makes sense. I'm just thinking then in terms of, and just answer this however you feel comfortable. So in terms of, you've hired someone to help you with the marketing, and you've also, you say you're hiring someone to run the events in your city. So how is that? And then you've got the event, the venue to pay and everything. I mean, is it breaking even, or how quickly is it able to kind of at least break even, or and then become profitable with something like this?
So because I have great negotiating skills, I am able to work out really, really good arrangements with the venues. And that's because I only partner with venues that really see the value in doing this. So we provide a lot of promotion to them, right? So even if someone doesn't go to the event, they find out about the event, and then they find out about this venue. So it's great to partner with new businesses that are looking to grow their audience, and also businesses that maybe aren't as busy. So we're still in the growing phase. There's still, fortunately our overhead isn't that high, and that is because my husband is also working with me on this full time. So we're both doing this full time, and he's in charge of the whole technical side. So he's doing all the website. He's developed the whole matching software that we used for the event. So if we did not have him, our expenses would be much, much higher, right?
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So he does all of that, and then I do all the events, the logistics and the management. And then we have a contractor that works for us like 5 to 10 hours per week handling all the social media.
Brilliant. That's a great partnership. It's lovely when you can do that. If you've got a tech person in the family, because I know that when we go through, my partner and I go through like some of our tech expenses, like, web and software and this and that, it can really build up. So that's great. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Definitely.
Excellent partnership. So in regards to, I always ask people this question about in regards to the use of the word vegan in their marketing and branding. You use the word veg. So tell us a little bit about your choice or otherwise to use the word vegan or not, and how prominently, in the current business.
Yeah, so for me, it's pretty easy because we only cater to vegetarians and vegans. We do not cater to anybody else. So for us, that's why we use the word veg, and we have no concerns about that at all. So it works very well for what we are doing. But of course, it's completely different for other companies that have products and they're not sure whether or not they want to use the word vegan, because yes, there are a lot of different thoughts about that. So I'm glad that we don't have to have that concern. And and the reason why we do vegetarian and vegans is just because if we were to just do vegan, it would close off the pool even more. So we're just not in a position to just have this open for vegans. And I do believe that it's important to have the two groups, to make it even a bigger pool, because I mean, let's face it, it's still a small percentage of people that are vegetarian or vegan. So when it comes to speed dating, for us, you have to have equal numbers of men and women, or pretty close to it, in order for the event to be really successful, right? An event would never work if there were 15 women and 2 men. And that's why I have such a good reputation with these events, is because I just do not run events if the numbers are like that. So I have had to cancel events where I just could not get enough of an equal ratio.
Right. Got it. And it's good, I think, as well, to get those two groups together, because at least if someone's vegetarian, they're part of the way there. So if you throw them in with a bunch of vegans, we can bring them over the line a little bit. So
exactly.
Fantastic. Now, I noticed when I Googled you, I Googled Veg Speed Dating and events, and you popped up, some of your older, stuff that you did when you were back in San Francisco already popped up, and your new business popped up. So you're pretty much, more or less on, Google page 1. And so I'm kind of curious about any content marketing strategies that you use to maintain yourself on Google, and particularly on the first page of Google.
Right. I mean, there isn't one specific thing, I would say. I mean, it's just about being consistent and having as much of a web presence as you can. We don't do any kind of SEO or Google ads or anything like that. It's really just from the social media, and also from the ticketing system that we use. It's a company called Purple Path. So they have, I think, pretty good SEO, and that's why a lot of our events pop up, through their website as well. And of course, we tried really hard for the launch to get as much media, coverage as we could. And we were featured in Veg News, which was fantastic. Vegan Stories, Vegan Lifestyle Magazine. So all those things combined, I think, is what's really helped us. And because we are indeed the only ones doing this to this scale, there are lots of vegan singles events across North America, but there is no other speed dating company dedicated to vegetarians and vegans.
Right, yeah. And it's always good, you mentioned, just from a media coverage perspective, it's always really good to be the first in doing anything. It's always a great angle, and the media love that. So you found that's been helpful for you in terms of generating interest, or either around your brand, if not getting ticket sales.
Definitely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Cool. And that's great. So what else was I going to ask you? So, what have been the key lessons you've learned through event planning in general, but also through what you've been doing with Veg Speed Date?
Right. And I know that we had talked about this before, is how I've flip-flopped back and forth between, being employed, being self-employed, and then being employed again. So it's really, you really want to consider what the best choice is for you, because running your own business has many perks, but it is a lot of work, which I did not anticipate when I first started my business. I thought, that it would be fun. I'd have tons of flexibility, which you do, but the reality is that it is often more work than a regular 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, I'm so glad you've said that because, we kind of sold this sort of quote dream by, some of the big marketers of like, oh, you just get to lie on the beach and do a few hours work a day and earn tons of money. And when the actual reality is, it's like, yeah, not so much. So
No.
I totally understand what you're saying. I'm sometimes up, and I've said this on the podcast, but sometimes till 1, 2 in the morning. I mean, I love it and I love what I do. And like you said, there is that flexibility, I can then get up a bit later in the next day and what have you. But I think it's good for people to hear that, you do want to be absolutely sure that you want to do this and not just do it because you think, oh, great, I can work fewer hours and, be my own boss and rock up when I want to. That, yeah, there's often a lot more hours, especially in the beginning as well. So, yeah, I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, you don't have the steady income. It's much harder to take vacations. At the end of the day, it's kind of hard to shut off your mind because you're always thinking about your business like 7 days a week, right? It's hard. It's really hard not to.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of Veg Speed Date, Karine, what can you share about us? Like, where are you going to go with it? Anything you want to share in terms of your long-term vision or future plans?
Yes, I'm glad you asked because we do have some very exciting things in store that will be revealed in the next couple of months. We will still be doing the speed dating events, but we will also be offering a variety of different events for veg singles, and which will be inclusive to all. So LGBTQ, hetero, so lots of really, really exciting events. And something else that I will keep, that I will not reveal right away, but definitely a lot will change in the next few months, and we really are striving to become the number one destination and service for veg singles all over the world.
All over the world, fantastic. So we're looking globally as well as in the US and Canada.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do is when that happens, Karine, if you let me know, and I'll include it in as one of the news roundups, so that we can keep everybody in the loop. And of course, you can go on to your website where we'll put a link to that in the show notes page where you can actually sign up as well, to keep abreast of what you're doing. So look, this has been fantastic. You've shared some wonderful tips, especially around, the event planning. I've got a few little tips that you've mentioned there. I particularly love the, incentivizing people to buy their tickets early, and not necessarily just with an early bird rate, but perhaps if there's something extra you can offer the first 10 or the first 20 people. I really like that. So you've shared some great tips. I love what you're doing. We've got such a unique service with the Veg Speed Date, and looking forward to hearing, your plans about how that's growing in the future. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Karine. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So that was Karine Brighten of Veg Speed Date. You can find out more at vegspeeddate.com. And that link is on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 81. Now for our vegan business news roundup. The market for cruelty-free cosmetics is increasing as more people rail against animal testing, according to a new report by Market Research Future. The report, Global Cruelty-Free Cosmetics Market Research Report, forecast till 2023, also found that one of the major drivers for this market is those people who are seeking out natural alternatives such as plant-based personal care products. Europe has the major market share in the global cruelty-free cosmetics category, followed by Asia Pacific. Among the key players profiled are Inica Organic in Australia and Spectrum Collections in the UK, which recently announced a collaboration with Paramount Pictures for the launch of its range of cruelty-free makeup brushes inspired by the movie Mean Girls. It's so good to see consumers becoming more aware of the truth behind cosmetics and demanding cruelty-free products. Although it's worth pointing out, though, that some cruelty-free certifications don't necessarily mean the product is vegan. At the upcoming VegFest UK trade show in October this year, that's 2017 if you're listening in the future, one of the panel discussions I'm hosting in the business support room is on certifications, and there's also a vegan body care pavilion area which will showcase vegan personal care products and cosmetics. I think it's really important to continue to raise awareness around not just animal testing, but also inclusion of animal ingredients in these types of products and how unnecessary it is. Electric car company Tesla announced recently that it's eliminated leather as an option for all its car seats, reports Electric. While the company isn't emblazoning the word vegan on its website, all mention of leather in regards to the seats has disappeared. Instead, the durable synthetic material is referred to as Tesla's premium designation. Now, at the moment, the steering wheel wrap comes in leather as standard with a vegan option on request. But given that Elon Musk is a smart guy and he's passionate about the environment, as well as obviously being open to suggestion, let's hope that leather is eliminated completely from the range. I actually tweeted him this week, praising him for the bold move in regards to the seats and requesting that the company do the same with the steering wheel wrap. I don't know if I'll get a reply. I'll let you know if I do. And feel free to send a nice, polite tweet yourself. You never know. Finally, animal agriculture companies need to evolve because alternative proteins, including plant-based and cultured products, will become a significant component of the global food system, according to the global head of agribusiness at the New Zealand branch of international finance company KPMG. Ian Proudfoot posted a blog on his LinkedIn platform after a recent visit to Silicon Valley, where he was impressed by the plant-based products he tried, including Ripple's chocolate pea milk, which he said was as good as any organically produced traditional cow dairy chocolate milk I have tasted. Proudfoot noted that there's more room for innovation in the alternative proteins market, particularly for those who can make these products available to mainstream consumers at significantly lower prices than the current players in this market, who are focusing on more affluent consumers who are prepared to pay a premium for ethical and sustainable products. Proudfoot also said that while the trend for large animal agriculture companies such as Danone and Tyson buying up plant-based companies would continue, smaller operators would also play an important part in the alternative proteins market. He ended his blog post by saying, "The committed entrepreneur starting up in a garage with a desire to change the world, or maybe a hired kitchen in this case, still has the opportunity to reshape how the whole world eats." So that's good news for those of you who own food-based vegan businesses, particularly if you've got a product or even an idea for something unique. So that's it for this episode of Vegan Business Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a review and rating on iTunes or any other platform you're listening on. Finally, I encourage you to head over to veganbusinessmedia.com, where you can find more resources, including details of my media and PR consultations, copywriting, editing and proofreading services to help you grow your vegan business. I'm Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business, and I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode of Vegan Business Talk. Bye for now.